Alright, hello everybody, and welcome as I still finish getting set up here because I am a professional. Not really. But welcome here to round number 2 here in season number 11 of LSR F1, as I believe there is everything set up, and I believe at this point we're just waiting on everybody to get their setups ready, and then we'll be getting underway here. As Rusky saying hello, hope you are doing well. As yeah, round 2 of season 11 here takes us to the Bahrain International Circuit, so a little bit surprised to see nobody yet out of the pits. Again, we may be in a bit of that loading screen. Asian Persuasion also saying hello. Yeah, a circuit which used largely in testing. So again, still nobody out on track. As it's kind of something prepared. Totally not sticking around to steal Group 1 strats for sure. Definitely, I could definitely use a little bit of that success. As now we are loaded. As you can see, that clock up in the top left has reset. So now we are fully loaded. And we'll be ready to go here in a few seconds' time for our 18-minute quality. But yeah, full grid. And you'll notice a good chunk of different names on the grid this week as well. There was a good mix of drivers from the full-time group. There is our first driver on the way out. It is Frozen, who was the I don't want to say, willing, we'll call it the unwilling recipient of our first YouTube short in a minute, which you may have seen recently due to at the finale of our Group 1 season opener and of our just general season opener last week, which ended up being won by B-Tom in dramatic fashion. Definitely check out that short in that stream if you haven't done so already. Of course, if any of you are new to LSR and this may be the first stream that you're tuning into, welcome. I am Vacant Haddock, of course, a commentator, Group 1 manager as well. Of course, definitely helped out by a lot of the other admin team in that regard, specifically Stratting, so shout out to him, of course. But again, round 2 takes us here to Bahrain. Definitely a tricky circuit to get right. Definitely a circuit. It's a circuit that I enjoy, but I'm not good at, if that makes any sort of sense. You can see already Frozen, I think, kind of getting a little bit of practice in what you can expect to see in this Group 1 race. You can see them hugging those outside white lines, which is really what you have to do if you want to get all of the pace at this track. You got to have a setup that really utilizes every last inch of space. You got plenty of high-speed sections. You got the low-speed turns 1, 2, and 3. Of course, you got the tricky turns 9 and 10. You got that, section of turn 4 where you got to, be really careful of that braking zone. Of course, you got the final corners here, also very important, but probably not going to see too many overtakes in that section. We'll stay on board with the Alpine as he makes his way out for the first lap of this qualifying session as he blasts down into turn 1. Of course, going to see the highest speeds on the circuit as he gets slowed all the way down, get all the way down to second gear for that very tight turn 1. Really important to get on the power smoothly and cleanly coming out of turn 2 and turn 3. Frozen is actually going to invalidate there, trying to find time, just cutting turn 3 that little too much on the exit. So that lap will not count. Of course, you got the run into turn 4. Of course, got a little bit more of a bump on the exit there. You got the little kink left of 5 into 6. Into 7, starting to run down the hill through these S's. Going to see drivers really pushing the pace through there. Really going to be flat with just some engine braking. Got to get slowed down for 8. Kind of a surprisingly tricky exit there of turn 8. Again, a bit of a slower corner. And you've just got this kind of double left-hander turns 9 and 10, especially for any drivers not running ABS. Got to really stick. Got to be careful under brakes to not lock up and run very deep. As you can see, Frozen showing us what you really got to do here down to turn 11. Really open up that corner in through 11. Of course, come uphill now through 12. In that kink left of 13. Again, you got to slow it back down for 14. Another important corner to get right before you blast out onto this back straight. Going to see a lot of setups for overtakes here. May see 1 or 2 overtakes as well. But of course, most of the overtakes going to be coming into turn 1 through 15. Of course, you got this little extra kink right of 16 technically, so it's the final 2 corners. We'll just call it the final 1. And Frozen's banker lap would be a 34.8 would it have been valid. He also probably backed off for a good bit of that lap, so that's not respected. Arbon, though, 28.7. as the Red Bull first to get a time on the board. Got a couple of cars behind him. Fight Me Now bot, and the Haas then puts down a 26.9. There's a Ferrari behind him. I'll try to catch that Ferrari. That was Mac T to the line, 27.8. The second Haas of JMC coming to the line as well. You got the Red Bull of Mango actually going to just dive into the pits here as he is invalidated. Kaname on an out lap. Keep an eye on both Alpines to be very competitive in this one. And of course, B-Tom, your championship leader, should have a lot of pace as well. Here comes Spenny Pubstub to the line. Going to open up DRS there. Only a 28.4 from him. So not super competitive. Rompo Strat in his Season 11 debut and maybe LSR debut coming to the line to just start a lap for VCAR. Got the Mercedes of Ozan getting underway. So we'll go to the McLaren of Elian Bayan making his return. Only a 30.2 for him. So not super competitive. So we'll have to see how many drivers can manage to dial laps in throughout this one. We'll stick with Frozen now. At least have purple in 2 sectors is popping up. That's plus 28.594 as he makes his way through 2 sectors. And of course, here he comes into the final 2 corners. There's a McLaren going to the line as well. That is Dan16 looking to get a lap started. Frozen, though, only second quickest for now. Of course, did have to take an extra lap. But 26.941, that'll put him behind Fight Me Now bot for the time being in this first exchange of laps. Arbon, of course, is going to dive into the pits. The Mercedes GTR Lion to the line, only a 29.4. Of course, got both Hasses coming to the line. JMC potentially getting a little bit of a tow from his teammate of Fight Me Now bot. On JMC, also known as Gaming, James going to push the line. That DRS is going to open up, and he'll jump up all the way into 4th. So some good early showings from Haas as they set 1st and 4th. Similarly, both Saubers showing solid lap times early. Spenny and Rasta, 5th and 6th. Kaname, meanwhile, 27.5, still a ways off of provisional pole, but will slot into 3rd position. There is the VCARB of Rompo coming to the line. That lap time going to be good enough for 4th, so he'll slot in just behind Kaname, so a good lap time there from him. We'll jump to Ozan, see what sort of lap time he can throw down. Only good enough for 10th, 28.6 there from him. So again, a lot of drivers going to be putting in banker laps. Here comes RCC Hoodham, who ran very comfortably in Group 2 last week, and he's up there fighting at the front, 27.551, only 6/10 off the current provisional pole position is RCC Hoodham, and that's a great lap from a driver who is pretty new this season. Dan as well, I believe that lap time going 6 questions, 27.646 as we get down under 11 and a quarter minutes left to go. Already you can see a lot of these times starting to fall. We'll jump to B-Tom, who has invalidated, so we will not stick around there much longer. You got Pickle making his way through Sector 2, so we'll keep an eye, see if he can improve at all. But I think a number of drivers here are going to be diving into the pits. Froggy Woggy up a 10th through Sector 1. So, of course, the Williams going to be looking to continue some pace. Of course, Froggy joining in a reserve capacity. Jump to Ozan, see what he's at through 2 sectors. He's down, so that will not be a significant improvement. Gaming James, of course, is going to dive into the pits. So not too many drivers on full push laps as of right now. There's Pickle. He'll be at 107.00 through 2 sectors. We'll jump to Froggy quickly, see what he's at, 106.6. So Froggy about 4/10 up and only about a 10th and a half. So Pickle going to have to find a lot of time. So we'll stick with Froggy, see what he can find in this final sector as well. Perhaps Pickle leaving a little bit in the tank as both Williams come across the line to finish their laps. Pickle going to go 15th for the moment. And here comes Froggy to the line. That'll be a lap good enough for P11. So with the first exchange done, it is still Find Me Now bot for Haas on top. Of course, you can see the Haas already out looking to try and get some clear air, to try and get some extra laps in. So I'll have to see where this ends up going. Of course, B-Tom actually is on the lap. We'll see if it's competitive as he comes. Oh, got a little bit high there. We'll see how competitive that is as he comes to this mark. 105.668. So looking pretty good for the Aston Martin, the championship leader. Of course, something to keep in mind throughout the session is that you do get a point for pole position here. So qualifying does matter, even if it's for just that lone point. Here comes B-Tom around the final corner to the line. Lap time only good enough for P3 as it stands. So we'll stay on board now with the provisional pole sitter of Fight Me Now bot, who doesn't maybe double outlapping this. Yeah, it looks like his tire's not in the window he wants, so is double outlaps potentially the way to go here? We'll jump on board with Matt T, the Ferrari, in P8 as he makes his way through Sector 2. Pretty clean there through turns 9 and 10. And of course, going to put the power down what we'll call the back straight, as opposed to one of these side straights, as he makes his way through turns number 11 and 12. Of course, that Sector 2 timing marker just up ahead. And he's up 3/10, so Mac T's got some solid pace here on his lap. So are going to be looking to fight the likes of Hodim and Rompo. Can he find anything else in this final sector? Of course, there's one corner left to go. Of course, Sector 3, very high speed, only 2 braking zones. And otherwise, full throttle the entire time, Mac T to the line, and he'll jump up onto the second row of the grid. That's 27.441 from him, so a very solid time there. Fight Me Now bot, of course, down on that first lap. Frozen, meanwhile, up a 10th through the first sector. So already the Alpine finding time, and so are those fresher tires after invalidating on a first attempt and having enough fuel to go again. How much difference is that going to make for Frozen? That extra grip as now he makes his way through 11 and 12 into 13, and to that second timing marker, he's now up a quarter of a second. So Frozen is on a lap right now as the Alpine looking for redemption this week. Of course, coming through the final corner now, and it's power down here to the line. Got to be careful not to bleed out quite too much, but of course, all these drivers going to have their setups right and dialed in. Frozen to the line, he'll find 3/10, and so Frozen, with 7 minutes left to go here in qualifying, jumps to the top with a 26.6. Can't Fight Me Now bot, though, potentially put a battle to that. Could Kaname, Frozen's teammate, put a fight to that? Here's Fight Me Now bot now onto the back straight. Of course, DRS going to open up, and once again, you can see that Haas making sure to move all the way over to what, for him, is that right-hand side of the circuit to open up this corner as much as possible, carry as much speed in and through as possible. And as Fight Me Now bot managed to pull out something in Sector 2, he's found something, but can it be enough to continue it? And there's a bit of a wiggle there. That's going to lose him a tenth or two, as not the cleanest of exits there from the Haas car. As now he'll come through the final corner. I believe that's Arbon going 10th quickest. There's one of the Ferraris coming to the line, I believe, and Fight Me Now bot. Yeah, I think that mistake making the difference there, leaving him lose a whole bunch of time there in Sector 3. So Frozen, at least for now, will hold on to provisional pole. We'll see if Kaname can do anything about it. And also, again, keep an eye as there's Mango going 3rd quickest, a little bit out of nowhere there. Definitely wasn't keeping an eye on the man who is actually a little bit ill today. So could this be a potential bit of a Jordan flu game? Kaname going to slot behind Mango with that lap time good enough for P4. Got Alien coming to the line now as he comes around the final corner. Found a 10th and a half. Only going to be about a 10th and a half as Alien a little bit off pace right now. 1:30.1 is his time right now. As I think potentially struggling to find a little bit. Hodim. I mean, hey, you know, that's all. I don't know if Mango's Jordan. I think that falls more to B Tom. But when you say flu game, you think Jordan. So we'll see exactly what happens here. What's up, T-Bone? Hopefully you are doing well. Here comes Jordan. Meanwhile, through the final corner, and that lap time good enough to put him in the top 10. Only one old enough here to get that reference. I feel like enough people understand that reference, even if they're, you know, not that old. Because certainly I wasn't old enough to witness it. Arbon going to dive into the pits here, so we'll go ahead and try to find somebody else. GTR Lion up 6/10 through 2 sectors. I think he is running a little bit low on ERS, though, so we'll see if that hurts him to the line. He's only going to be up 3/10 and is going to remain in P19 for the time being. Yeah, very fast grid here. And GTR Lion and I think Alien struggling to find a little bit of pace here as they try to get back up to speed. Ozan invalidated as well. Of course, you got Jordan to Wavy in there. B-Tom now, I think, one of the few drivers on a push lap. Maybe a little bit of a lockup there on the inside. Also, I believe it was pizza, not his cheeseburger, T-Bone. I believe. But B-Tom up about a half a tenth, going to run very wide there, and that's going to be an invalidation. So B-Tom going to lose that lap there, but definitely more pace in it for the Aston Martin. But we'll see if he can manage to find any sort of 7/10 there to kind of bridge that gap to the front. As we'll go ahead and pull up. No, I was going to show interval here. Yeah, there we go. It was Pete. Yeah, again, hey, I wasn't old enough for it, but I know enough random sports lore that, you know, I can call some of that out. But, of course, there is your current interval splits for your 20 drivers currently on the grid. Rasta, meanwhile, found 3/10 in the first sector, so he's got a good bit of pace in there, potentially. As now here comes Rasta, working his way through Sector 2. We'll stay on board with the Sauber. Of course, going to be trying to find as much time as possible. Track evolution, definitely a big factor in this game, but has Rasta potentially gone out a little bit too early, he probably won't have time to get an extra lap in after this. So this could be qualifying over for Rasta Cheech. As you can see, a number of drivers diving into the pits, starting to come out of the pits. You can see a big traffic jam running down there into Turn 1. Looks like they'll all stay out of the way. The couple of drivers just starting laps. So Rasta, only 4/10, so still will be enough to get him to the fringes of the top 10. But of course, with a number of drivers still trying to get a chance to get a lap in, as we are down to about 2.5 minutes left to go. Rasta through the final corner. Where will he slot in our starting order? Is 2.5 minutes. He won't dive into the pits. That lap time only good enough to join his teammate for 13th, and that's probably the end of his qualifying. Meanwhile, Dan 16. Of course, you might know him from other sessions as Daniel or Precise. Currently sits in 4th, as he sits in a very comfortable spot. Looks like, I believe that is the Haas of Fight Me Now bot, looking to get an outlap rolling. Frozen is on a push lap, so actually, Frozen may be doubling this as well. That we're burning a little bit of extra fuel, so we'll keep that in mind. Yeah, definitely a strong grid regardless. So should be a very interesting watch. Coda last week was pretty interesting as well. And, of course, came all the way down to those final moments. We'll jump on board with Bats here, who I believe is finishing what will be his final lap of the session. See big bottoming out there. Of course, going to be very aggressive through that final corner, and Bats actually going to dive into the pits here, so that'll be his qualifying over. The Ferrari will be only starting from P17, but a very busy grid right now. Frozen underway. Fight Me Now bot is underway, so we'll stay on board with the Haas as he looks to go chasing after a provisional pole shot. Big lockup there on the inside, though, but seemingly comfortable through the first couple of corners, and he's found a 1/10.5 through Sector 1, so Fight Me Now bot going to be throwing everything at this circuit, and Frozen is out. Frozen out again. He looks like he's into about the same spot that I'm blanking on it right now, but he's had a big wreck. Froggy Boggy has left the session, so the Williams will start from P15. We'll be sure to try to get him back in for close to the race start, but we'll see what happens. But Fight Me Now bot with an opportunity, or could Mango jump in there? Fight Me Now bot's up over 3/10, and he's pushing through this final sector. Does he have the pace? It's a Mercedes up ahead of him. I believe that is Ozan and GTR Lion. Both should get a lap in. So Fight Me Now bot should be putting in the first final lap time, and he's gone wide. Fight Me Now bot has invalidated at the final corner, so Frozen will hold on to provisional pole, and that lap time would have been good enough from Fight Me Now bot. And that's going to be a big disappointment there. Rompostrat up 4/10. What can he do in the final sector? He'll jump up all the way to 4th. So that's a great lap time from him. We'll see where his teammate of Hoodham can come across the line. If he is invalidated, so he will not improve. Spenny Pubstuff not up a lot through 2 sectors. So he'll probably not improve too far. We'll keep an eye on that time. No, he'll stay 13th. Canale also not significantly improving. Here he comes as he pushes to the line. He'll jump up into 5th, though. There's a Williams coming in behind. I believe that is Lofty Pickle, who will jump up into P13, so a solid lap there from him. It's a McLaren and a Ferrari now coming through the final corners. Elian pushing. He's not up a significant amount. It is Macti behind him, who is in P8. Can the Ferrari do anything about provisional pole as he comes in line. No, he'll slot into P6. Here comes Mango now out of the final corner. Bit of a wiggle, only up a tenth and a half. Can he pull out any magic in the final corner? He'll stay third, and now I's going to go to B-Tom as he pushes the line. He'll jump up into fourth, but not going to be good enough for pole. Jordan comes across the line in 10th, and I believe with those remaining drivers, I believe it won't be enough. Arbon will come across the line. He'll start 15th. Ozan, I believe, will start 17th as that lap time not good enough to improve. GTR Lion, much the same. But despite crashing there in qualifying, it will still be Frozen on pole position here in Bahrain, picking up that extra point. Of course, we'll have a quick break here before moving into the race. But it is Frozen by about a quarter of a second, taking provisional pole. Oops. Oh, and I guess we could take a look at the race director here, but the number of drivers using 3 sets. Gavin James actually saving all of his sets of softs. And of course, most drivers using 3 sets of softs in that one. So tire selection certainly going to be an interesting thing here. And of course, we'll wait to see as we move into the race. So ready up will be at 30 minutes at the half-hour mark. What are your predictions for this race? I mean, yeah, I think it's hard to bet against Frozen. Why are you the number 1 fan? Because you're here and you're chatting. Yeah, it's a chatting XP thing. Is that number 1 fan thing? So predictions for this race, I think, it's hard to bet against Frozen with that pace, but he has shown that he has, there is a little bit of crashing now and again. So we could keep an eye on that. All drivers be ready as well, because that rejoin hopefully will be okay. I think that may have started the countdown. So we did have a ready up, so all drivers be ready. Frozen hit an iceberg last race. He must have hit one in qualifying as well, though did manage to still come away with pole position. Everybody should still be ready, though. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lights. And we are underway here in Bahrain, and we got 2 drivers not getting away on the grid. That's Pickle and Gaming James, who did step away. But into turn 1, it's going to be Fight Me Now Bot with a great start, and Bot's going to take a comfortable lead here. That's going to be a quick yellow flag here. As I think we go under virtual safety car because of Pickle and Gaming James not pulling away from the grid, because not everybody readied up. As yeah, there are 2 disqualifications for readying up early, so virtual safety car immediately. As we will go ahead and pull up tires as well. And Frozen actually going for hards off the start. As yeah, I think that, as I think we will be having, yeah, we're going to have a red flag here because somebody readied up early. So we do have a red flag. So red flag, red flag. And we will restart in just a second. We will make sure to get everybody back in and ready to go. So if everybody could retire. So yeah, red flag, red flag. So I'll go ahead and pause stream, and we'll be back in a few minutes. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back very quickly. And we're back. All right, so just about to get ready to go here. Of course, getting a quick look at the grid. Probably even get a little bit of pre-race music as well. But we'll be going back in. Of course, sorry for that delay, both to any viewers and drivers. Of course, anybody back in, I can also go ahead and do this. But of course, going online. Of course, we will have a brief break. Of course, everybody will have a full array of tires to choose from. So could we see, could we see a split between 1 and 2 stops? And there's another DC. So we'll be 18 on the grid to start, which I believe is just our luck at this point. Of course, still waiting to get ready to go. We'll try to get Elian back in. Of course, as I send that invite. Again, should be a brief pause before we get underway. But yeah, should be an interesting strategy thing. Yeah, could see a mix of 1 and 2 stops. Definitely going to be interesting to see how a lot of that plays out. And you're probably hearing sirens outside because I got my windows open because it gets a bit toasty in that place. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes down. I am not sure if we can't. If they're going to do everything we can to get Elian back in before the race starts. Again, there isn't the same kind of auditory cue for me for when we get started. Make sure nothing is in your beer today. Yeah, I mean, it'll make Frozen Crash. Don't have a beer yet. I might grab one at some point, but we'll see exactly what happens. Again, still waiting to see a ready up message. Interesting to see exactly what happens when that does go out. But again, should be hopefully only on another minute or so. But yeah, again, brief pause here. But yeah, I think, hard to be against Frozen. I think Bot will put pressure on him. Same with B-Tom. Could we see Kaname up towards the front? I think going to be interesting to see. At the end of the day, who really knows? But yeah, you get a nice long stream today, which may be code for if people need to go to the bathroom. But yeah, again, still waiting. Should be all right. We should be set in these next couple of moments here. Elian is kind of back. Just needs to take control. And there is the sirens again for me. So again, just waiting here quickly. I'm just waiting, of course, looking at Discord, and there is the ready up. So we will be just about ready to jump in here in the next few seconds. So there is the ready up command. So 30 seconds to the race start. Of course, it is going to be Frozen still on pole here. I realize that my pedals are kind of fucked up. I don't have my pedals screwed in anymore. Well, crap. I gotta fix that later, but... Alright. Yeah, daylight is burning. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lights. And we are underway once again here in Bahrain, and it seems to be a better break getaway this time from Frozen, but Fight Me Albot looking to blast up the inside here. He will have the inside line into turn number 1. Can he get the move done? Of course, Frozen gonna have that outside, and it's gonna be all on the exit here on cold tires, and it's Fight Me Albot on the exit of turn 2, taking the lead as we run out the hill into turn number 4. There's B-Tom with a very good start. He's looking to the inside of Frozen as well, who has not gotten away very great. Mango also putting the pressure on, but it's Fight Me Albot with a great start here as he leads through lap 1 of Bahrain. There's B-Tom looking to the inside of Frozen, not able to get that move done though. We'll go ahead and pull up the tire graphic on its mediums for the entirety of the grid. Mac T able to get trying to get a move done on the outside of Mango, who's a little bit all over the place, as he and Mac T ghosting big time here through the middle sector. Looks like Mac T should pull out ahead, but yeah, still ghosted here. I've seen some very odd race strategy choices, but looking at an almost definite two-stop, you can see a bunch of cars there in the background. Looks to be 3 wide between Spenny, Rasta, and potentially Ozan, but already a bit of a breakaway at the front starting to happen for Fight Me Nowbot, as that's a great start. As Mac T and Mango still battling, Mango getting a bit loose and making contact with Mac T. Great from both drivers to manage to hold on, but it is Mac T managing to find his way up into 4th. Fight Me Nowbot looking to break the toe of the cars behind, and we're clean here through lap 1. Of course, down 1 driver. We did lose a driver we did lose Loppy Pickle, who was having console issues and was unable to rejoin, but that'll get us underway with lap number 2, and it's Fight Me Nowbot with a great start here. You can see the V-carbs in the background. You got Rompo Strat starting to gain a little bit on Hood, and he'll tuck back into this slipstream, not able to get the move done into turn 1. And so we'll get to lap 2. Of course, everybody slowing right up, and we'll blast out down the back straightaway. Of course, DRS now available for Frozen. So Fight Me Nowbot not quite able to make a good enough breakaway throughout that first lap. We'll see if he can continue that. But these front 2 already starting to make a little bit of a breakaway from B-Tom here on lap number 2. Of course, 29 laps, so will be a fairly long race. Should be done, we are going to be delayed about 15 minutes total, sadly, based on if everything were to go perfect. But, of course, pulling back away. And that gap has closed up very quickly from Frozen to Fight Me Now at half a second. Of course, DRS available for Frozen. That'll keep him in range here through Sector 2. Again, not a lot of moves really taking place. Everybody kind of stuck in a bit of a DRS train here in the opening laps. Of course, everybody's trying to get a feel back for this circuit after an extended intermission. We'll come to the line to start lap number 3, and Frozen should get Fight Me Nowbot rather comfortably here as we make our way through the final corner. And going to be very interesting to see how strategy plays out. Of course, safety car is still always a potential factor, as here comes Frozen. Going to go to the inside of Fight Me Nowbot and is going to easily take the lead here on lap number 2. We'll see how much Bot fights it on lap 3. Mac T also finding his way past V-Tom. Kaname as well, finding that inside of Mango. Mango looking for a switchback. Not able to do anything with it, though. So it'll be Mac T now pulling away and will be part of the chase back. Fight Me Nowbot also not able to find quite enough pace to put the fight to the cars ahead. Mango looking to put the defense on Dan now. As of course, running this game on controller significantly more difficult than it has been on in years past. Mango, of course, adapting to a new controller and a big lockup there. So Mango potentially starting to struggle a little bit with this heavier fuel. As you can see, a big lockup, a big wiggle trying to get on the brakes there. Another big lockup coming through 9 and 10. So we'll see if the Red Bull can try to hold on here. Fight Me Nowbot, though, I think content to maybe try and work and stick with Frozen here. Definitely interested to see how much strategy this race comes down to as we continue here. Of course, coming to the end of lap 3, so almost 10% of the way done already. Bit of a mistake there from Elian as he's now fallen off the back of the pack. You can see 3 packs really starting to form. Got, really Frozen and Fight Me Now Bot pulling away up at the front, and then you got Mac T all the way down to Rosicic in 13th, all in a bit of a train. Just trying to stick together at this phase as we start lap number 4, and Frozen absolutely rocketing down the straights here. B-Tom as well, going to find his way past Mac T with DRS assistance. You can see there in the background, the Aston Martin gets it done. Mango is going to have to go defensive again here, as the Red Bull just not a load of race pace. As I think those lower downforce setups, you can see the difference that it's making for Frozen and how much of a gap he's pulled out. There's Dan going to the inside of Mango. Mango going to try to sweep it around the outside, and Mango goes round. I think tried to close the door there and was potentially a bit of contact, but that's going to hurt Mango big time as he's dropped all the way down to 15th. And then, of course, we'll bump everybody up a position, but Mango got a lot of work to do. That's never something you want to see happen. I think, Mango, I think Dan was still kind of there. We definitely want to see other angles of what just happened between those two drivers. But I think definitely a frustrating moment for Mango, as now he'll look to try and start to claw some time back, as he's now back behind his teammate today of Arbonne. The pack's still all relatively tight together. Of course, not counting really the two up at the front. Fight Me Now Bot still within DRS range of Frozen. So the Haas keeping within touching distance. Again, you can see we'll keep an eye on this front fight, as I imagine we'll see an exchange for third place again. Fight Me Now Bot, of course, going to close a little bit here down the pit street, but that gap staying largely even between him and Frozen. As Frozen, I think, just utilizing loads of straight line speed here, as he's just comfortably pulling away. And again, Fight Me Now Bot, I think, has enough downforce to really kind of keep with him throughout some of these corners. B-Tom also able to defend down there into turn 1. You can see the Aston Martin of Jordan having to defend from JMC in the background. The Aston Martin going to sweep out wide, going to be side by side here through turn 4. Bit of a wiggle for the Haas, another wiggle as they'll bang wheels. Mango as well able to dispatch Arbonne as he tries to move up the order. Yeah, Frozen just very comfortable here. I think just falling into that rhythm now. Of course, Fight Me Now Bot will have to deal with a little bit of that dirty air as he tries to keep chase. And he's keeping pace right now. But how long will that continue? Of course, both drivers largely even on ERS deployment. I believe Elian as well, maybe in AI. That may be why he's falling back a little bit. As well, you can see this chase pack continuing to fall back a little bit. And Fight Me Now Bot, again, just sticking with Frozen, not really closing that gap at all. And he's going to run wide there out of the final corner and almost into the gravel on the outside. That's going to lose him a whole chunk of time. DRS will still open up, so we'll see if he can close up. And it looks like he will get another helping of DRS. So Fight Me Now Bot, though, potentially showing the impact of some of that dirty air. Mac T to the inside. He'll make that move for P3. Bit of a lockup on that inside tire. It parks it nicely on the apex. And it's the Ferrari final position. JMC as well, battling with Jordan. They'll still be side by side as they look to exit turn 3. And it's Jordan with the better exit. Who has DRS? It's the Aston Martin who will hold that advantage. But they're starting to lose track of P7 and 8 of Hoodem and Rompo. So they'll continue to try to keep pace here. Ozan and Mango now side by side, and I think potential contact there, as Mango was forced rather wide. And again, continuing to lose some time here. Meanwhile, up towards the front, Frozen now starting to make that little bit more of a breakaway. There's the dirty air really starting to become a factor here on lap number 6? It looks to be, as that gap now has opened up about 0.3 of a second from where it was just a lap ago. And this might be Frozen. And so this battle for the lead looks like it could very well be a strategy battle if Bot wants a shot at the victory here. So definitely going to be an interesting decision. But yeah, that gap, a second and a half as we look to start the next lap. And you can see just how much that gap is opening from just how much straight line speed Frozen has. There's so much less downforce, a bit of a slide there through turn number 1. But still showing so much pace. Kaname now looking to get the move done on B-Tom as he looks to the inside. Not able to get a great exit though. B-Tom going to have the advantage there. But B-Tom, of course, right on the gearbox of the Aston Martin. Both drivers, of course, DRS on the Ferrari ahead. B-Tom going defensive here. They're going to potentially not allow Kaname to have a great pass through. As Ozan and Mango, did they collide and have damage? Ozan and Mango may have come together and gotten damage with each other. They both may have damaged front wings there. But very interesting to see both those drivers dive into the pits here on lap number 7. As Mango lost a whole chunk of time there. Yeah, I think Mango may have gotten front wing damage in that tangle with Ozan. So Mango, I think, Mango must be thinking two-stop here. So how much could that potentially affect our race leader who's now pulling away? I think he's now at a point where potentially he can just try and fall into a rhythm, really stretch this tire stint out, and then move from there. And of course, a big battle going to be going on for the final 2-point scoring positions as Jordan down to Froggy on a bit of a train of their own right now. And goes well, picking up 3 seconds there for track limits as he tries to really hustle that Red Bull back. We'll have to keep an eye on him as this race continues. But yeah, he may be banking on a bit of a safety car here. A bit wide there from Jordan. That may have been a track limits warning. Opposite his Aston Martin teammate B-Tom, not quite able to get the move done on McT. He'll have to defend from the Haas of JMC here into turn 1, and that Haas should have it comfortably. Big lockup, though, as Arbon going to retire from the session in the pit, so he is out. That will not bring out a safety car. But a good move from Gaming James here into turn 1. We'll see if he can hold it as we run down into turn number 4, and that he will as we get into that braking zone. It's now going to be the Haas with some clear air. Bit of a wiggle there as we come over that bump on the exit. We'll see if it can continue. But yeah, you can see Frozen out the front. Froggy Boggy picks up 3-second time penalty for track limits. You can see Fight Me Now bot, I think, was really starting to fall off. That DRS was the big thing, keeping him in touch. But it's Frozen now pulling away comfortably in the same way we've seen B-Tom do so many times before. But Frozen just with loads of pace here, as there is our second departure from the session, technically, as Arbon also out of this race. And actually, Fabian Albach going to dive into the pits here on lap number 9. So an early pit stop for the man who currently sits in second place, as those mediums may just be done. So is it going to be a 2-stop here from the Haas? We'll see what tires he's going to slap on. He is going for hards. And it's a big ask, I think, taking those, what will be about 10 laps. He will, of course, come out towards the back of this pack, but should have a good bit of clean air to bring those tires up to temperature, and we'll see how those hards work for him. As an early tire change here from Fight Me Now bot. Mango, of course, setting a fast lap of the race on that soft compound tire. Again, I think Mango really just banking on the safety cars playing a factor in the remainder of this race. Of course, now it's McT's job to try and go chasing after that Alpine, which you could see briefly there in your bottom left-hand corner. But yeah, McT, I think, doing a good job at holding some of the cars behind. Bompostrad may have had a bit of a mistake at some point there as he's fallen off of that pack ahead. Of the medium started to die on his car as he's potentially gone something very aggressive. As Gawoon Jamie showing up. Hey, Jamie, how you doing? Good to see you, as always. Of course, continuing to push here on as we start lap number 10. Frozen leading the way, and of course, and nobody as well from that lead pack. And as I say that, actually, Dan going to dive into the pits. Rompo Strat going to follow. So 2 more drivers diving into the pits. So I think 2-stop. We're going to see a good mix of 1 and 2 stoppers in this one. as hard tire is going to go on the McLaren of Dan. We're going to jump on board with Rompo, see what tires he's going to throw on that V-Carb. I believe it's going to be hards there as well. Looking to make a comeback. Would, of course, love to see you on this grid. As you've seen, the number of drivers here, and it's a very competitive grid, a very fast grid, as Kaname has now... Whoa, as I was watching the pit stop phase there, Miss Kaname going to the front of the chase pack. So now, technically, an Alpine 1-2 on track, as Kaname getting a double overtake done. Very nicely done there. But definitely some big moves going on. So we'll see if Kaname potentially has the more pace than Frozen. Of course, we'll make our way into Sector 3 again. That gap up front, 7.5 seconds. A massive gap right now. Finding Albot, though, still the leader on that new set of tires. You can see he's gotten a nice undercut on Dan. So 8 seconds is the advantage for him. And he's, though we'll see how much time Bot may end up losing behind GTR Lion. They're potentially taking some advantage here to save a little bit of battery. And potentially just try and push on here. He's got a big gap up to the leader of Frozen. I'll throw up that leader gap real quick. But yeah, he'd have to make up 23 seconds. Here comes Beaton looking to make a move to the inside of Kaname. He'll get that done by the braking zone as the Alpine back up into P2. Did he time that move right, though, to potentially have some defensive DRS as Bats Plus dives into the pits, fighting Albot also ahead of GTR Lion now. So the Haas, once again, with a little bit of clear air. And Beaton, despite not getting that defensive DRS, still had enough space behind him where he was good to defend from Kaname. Once again, these front drivers working together fairly nicely, but not really closing that gap to Frozen ahead all that much. Frozen just in a league of his own right now. Of course, Frozen going to be very determined here to try and secure this win. Is already on lap number 11 in this one. Jordan and Gain James, meanwhile, have been really going at it since the start. Froggy Boggy has moved his way up into 8th past Spenny Pub and Rasta. Again, fighting Albot, the leader of the drivers that have stopped so far. But I think the question is going to be how long will those hard tires hold on? Is again fighting Albot now with DRS once again on that Sauer up in front. Actually, no, he should get it by the time we get back to the pit straight. So that'll give him yet another advantage. Kaname, though, closing up to the back of Beaton. The Alpine continuing to try to use the advantage here. There's Frozen into the pits here on lap number 11. So Frozen potentially not liking how those mediums have been working. So Beaton will now take the lead. Here comes Kaname to the inside, though. And it'll be a very brief lead for Kaname. You can see Jordan diving into the pits there in the background. So one Aston Martin into the pits. Additionally, a Sauber of Rostachich will follow in, as will GTR Lion. And so we will have a lead change here, as you can see there in the background. Fight Me Now Bot does take the lead. Of course, on 3 laps older tires, right up on the back now, a Spenny Pub Sub, and is actually going to pick up track limits there as he struggles to get past the Sauber. And so that's a big loss for Fight Me Now Bot. As Frozen only a second behind, so that undercut worth only about 2.5 seconds at this stage. But yeah, Fight Me Now Bot's still not in a terrible position, but we'll see how long those hards potentially last. And if they're going to the end, or if Fight Me Now Bot is taking one more stop before the end of this race. Beaton and Kaname going to continue to go at it for the lead. Frozen dispatches Spenny Pub fairly easily here, and it's going to be a 1.7 second gap up to Fight Me Now Bot, who of course is going to be held up maybe a little bit by Froggy Boggy, who picks up a 3-second time penalty of his own. As the Haas looking to get past the Williams, going to look to the inside here, and to do that very quickly on a fresher set of hards, and now has his teammate in front of him. So Fight Me Now Bot doing a nice job here of dispatching traffic. Going to hold off here, and is going to have DRS advantage here, thanks to his teammate. Williams rather close in the top 3, the top 4 all opting to dive into the pits together. A bit of a wide run there from Fight Me Now Bot. Froggy Boggy going to dive into the pits, but JMC going to give his teammate a little bit of a tow here down the pit straight. Going to dive out of the way for him. And so Fight Me Now Bot does take the lead here on lap number 13. But of course, Frozen not far behind. And we'll see where they come out. Rompo gets a nice little undercut on the likes of Kaname and B-Time. You can see the drivers piling out of the pits, and they're going to be behind. So it's Rompo's strat now leading the chase pack. Mango now working his way back up. He's almost back into the top 10. But, of course, Mango's going to have at least one more stop. But currently a Haas 1-2. And I think if you're Gaming James, you're trying to defend here a little bit. You know, definitely want to do it cleanly, but just do everything you can to allow your teammate just to open up a little bit of a gap. And I imagine the Alpine going to get him rather comfortably here. But Gaming James has done a nice job opening up that gap just a little bit, allowing Fight Me Now Bot that little bit more room. And there's some contact there as Gaming James looking to get all of the elbows out on Frozen, who does now have the clean air and a chance to pull away. But Gaming James doing some great work there for Fight Me Now Bot. We'll see if it ends up being enough, but certainly going to be a big challenge for Bot regardless. Again, the question is just going to be how long will those hards continue to last here? You can see the pack really starting to spread out. See that you got really pack number 2 here, being currently led by Rompo Strats. As there is Gaming James diving into the pit, so this will become a battle for a podium position. Of course, got Dan giving chase, got Kaname, B-Tom, MacT, RCC, Hoodim. Oh, with a fresher set of tires, I should say. Only by what is that, 3 laps from the drivers ahead. So we got 2 of really the same battles here, both for the lead and for that final podium position. But definitely a little bit different between the two. With Fight Me Now Bot, he's got that clear air now. He's got Fight Me Now Bot out of DRS range. And so we'll see how long those hards continue to last. With Rompo, Strat, and Dan as well, they've got 2 drivers to potentially work together here on similar tires. And so where it's, you know, a lot of these corners, it's really difficult to get an overtake done on. You really need a lot more of that straight line speed. So we'll see if that has an impact, as well as some kind of double dirty air there. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how Rompo treats the remainder of this race. With 2.6 seconds is the gap up at the front. Additionally, MacT hasn't had the greatest stint here, as he's fallen off of some of the cars in front. So not sure if he potentially had an incident coming out of the pits, or had like a little half spin trying to get those hards up to temperature, but he's now battling for 7th. Mango as well has dived into the pits. He's got it on a fresh set of hards. I'd imagine that will try to go to the end, but again, I think Mango going to be hoping for a bit of a safety car here, or something to happen a bit further up the field, to try and increase his chances at a race victory. As we come down the pit street here on lap number 15, that gap not between Fight Me Now Bot and Frozen not coming down through the straights as much as it was. So as Fight Me Now Bot started to find something as he pushes on, of course does have that 3-second time penalty to contend with. There is the potential to get some of those penalties reviewed, just as something to keep in mind. Though it didn't look like that incident that ended up with Bot picking up that warning would be reviewable. So of course we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, everybody, I think, really in race management mode at this point. I think the drivers that aren't, I think Bats and Froggy just continuing to push, or just going to be really pushing on here, as they're certainly working for that 2-stop. A couple other drivers to keep an eye to maybe make another stop. Ozan there in 13th may have that need. Otherwise, it's really going to be Fight Me Now Bot there at the front, but he's very, very comfortable on this set of hards. So we'll see how this continues. Dan continues to kind of inch a little bit closer to Rompo here, but then Rompo just inches away just a little bit more. So I think that clean air doing wonders for the V-Carb car that I think was at the back of this pack early. And so Rompo potentially having an opportunity to highlight some of his pace as we are now on lap 16. So 13 laps to go at the end of this lap. You can see Dan having some of the DRS there, but of course is going to lose a bit of time, not being able to get on the power quite as early, not having that clean air through turn number 2. Will he have enough DRS advantage? No, he won't. It's, again, a really good exit there from Rompo down into turn 4, where he's just able to hold on to that position. bit further down, Hoodham and MacT looking to go side by side for a moment. Is Hoodham going to find a switchback? He will not quite, but a good look at a move there as he tried to make something happen. The race definitely calmed down a little bit. I am actually, since we are past the halfway point, I'm going to grab, not a beer this time, just to make sure that there's, but, you know, something being in my water wouldn't be, you know, something being in my water means I'd have to, you know, check even more stuff. That might be even more concerning. So stay on board with the current leader. That's Mango, I believe, picking up 3 seconds. That is. And again, came together with, I believe it was MacT early in this race. But is that extra downforce that was maybe hurting Fight Me Nowbot on the mediums now working to his advantage on a set of hard tires? I think that's very interesting to consider here, as I think Frozen had a clear straight-line speed advantage. Kaname, meanwhile, finding his way past Dan. Hoodham as well, getting it done on MacT. So we got a couple of swap positions. Can Kaname potentially get 2 drivers this lap now, as he'll go chasing after Rompo? Beatom, of course, just kind of hovering there in the background. It hasn't been necessarily his best race. Currently sitting in 6th, so would still score some solid points. But it has been the Bot and Frozen show up at the front, as they have that comfortable 6-second advantage. That they broke DRS early, and it just continued to pull away. But it'll be 12 laps to go next time across the line. Of course, sitting with this fight for 3rd place. As it's been, pretty much, green the entire time. We haven't seen, again, apart from that contact between, or that sent Mango spinning at turn 4 early in this race, haven't seen too many incidents. Been a lot of very clean, very tight racing, which I think Bahrain lends itself to, which is, why it's definitely a track that I enjoy to see, enjoy to commentate. Of course, it's a track that you'll have an opportunity to see 2 more times this weekend, as Group 2 and Group 3 will both have action tomorrow. Group 2 will be at 2 p.m. Eastern. Group 3 will be at 4 p.m. Eastern. As he comes Beatom now, looking to get the move done on Dan, as he'll manage to get that done on that better set of hards. Dan looking for a switchback, not going to quite have it done. He'll look to the outside, though, as Beatom will probably have to go defensive here, as here comes the McLaren, looking to the inside, not able to get that move done, though. Beatom still stuck behind. So have those hards started to reach a bit of a crossover point here. You can see Frozen starting to close that gap. It's down to it's down almost a second from where it was just a short while ago. Spenny Pubstub now picks up 3 seconds due to track limits. Ozan dives into the pits, so he doesn't think those hards will take him to the end, so he'll dive into the pits. So could we be looking at an additional pit stop for our race leader if Ozan was diving into the pits there? At least diving on board here to try and look at tire temperatures. It looks like those rears getting rather warm if they're in that 200 mile an hour or 200 degree Fahrenheit range. Of course, if you don't know what that is in Celsius, I cannot help you. Oh, actually, it's about 100. I can help you. It's just short of 100 degrees, but that seems a little bit toasty for hard. You can see Frozen really starting to bring that gap down as the stint has continued on. So is lap 9, lap 10, where those hards start to fall off? Kaname, meanwhile, gets the move done on Rompo's strat, so now it's an Alpine 2 and 3. As Kaname gets up into the podium places, does Rompo have anything to say about it, though? He will have DRS here. Gaming James picks up a time penalty there. Bats Plus dives into the pits. The V-Carb closing, not able to get the move done. Bit of a lockup on that inside tire from the Alpine of Kaname, but he's through okay. And still holds on to that 3rd place. Bats, meanwhile, going to be released out of the pits, as he's going to be one of the drivers on the 2-stop. Mango's going to get by him, but that's going to be a driver for the Ferrari to go chasing after. So we'll have to see how many other drivers are on this 2-stop. Of course, that is the AI of Elliott. who sadly, I think, has just not been able to retake control of that McLaren. But Frozen has closed up massively here, as that gap now down to a second. Both drivers, of course, using about the same amount of ERS as each other. And Frozen has closed to within DRS range now as that gap has come under a second. And Bot trying to open it up, but not quite able to do it. As Frozen potentially finding us some extra life. And Fight Me Now Bot's going to dive into the pit. So Fight Me Now Bot is thinking two-stop here. So the Haas dives in the pits from P2. I think he'll certainly, he's probably going to come out of the pits down in P10. Yellow flags. Has Frozen had issues? Frozen may have had issues here. What happened to Frozen? Frozen has issues. Is Frozen having technical issues? Is Frozen having technical issues, or was he holding up to try and defend with his teammate of Kaname here? Seemed to be an odd decision, but that may have been what it was. He was certainly in a safe place to be able to do that. But is Frozen already potentially thinking long game here, and potentially thinking that bringing a train with him, with his teammate, could be the way to go, as Fight Me Now Bot has been released in 8th place. What is the gap to the leader here? The gap is 15 seconds. So 15 seconds from Fight Me Now Bot up to Frozen. And it will be a fresh set, but Fight Me Now Bot also going to have to make up an extra 3 seconds for that time penalty. So is Frozen thinking long-range game now? Where he only has to go 9 more laps at the conclusion of this lap to the end. And could the likes of Rompo, could the likes of, of Dan also dive into the pits, and could that affect how this race continues? But got 4 drivers now, very, very tight for the lead. As that's potentially a big move from Frozen, though it does put him at big risk. Here's B-Tom to the inside of Rompo. They're going to go side by side. B-Tom a little bit deep. They're going to bang wheels here. Rompo going to give him the squeeze. They'll remain side by side at the exit of turn 3. Of course, DRS for both cars. B-Tom going to have the inside as we mark our way into turn number 4. The Aston Martin braver on the brakes, and by the time we get to the exit, the Aston Martin slides his way in front. And now it's B-Tom with a chance to go after both Alpines and a potential race victory here at Bahrain. I think Bot as well not, potentially, could struggle to see those hards start to light up. This is about win, though. Those hard tires on his car started to give out. So could we see much the same thing? So keep an eye on that gap between Fight Me Now Bot and MacT, as I think that could be really the most telling gap of this race. But still, he's got so much more work left to do. Mango picks up another 3-second time penalty, as that 2-stop just due to that spin not really working out for him. And as well, he had front wing damage that had to be fixed at one point in this one. We'll come across the line now to start lap number 22. And that gap's still starting to come down. Rompo, surprisingly, going to dive into the pits. Of course, going to get it slowed all the way down to make sure that he doesn't get a time penalty. But that'll be one more car out of the way. And so what is the V-Carb driver going to go to? Hoodham, meanwhile, finds his way past Dan. Big lockup, though, into turn number 1. But he gets the move done. And so Hoodham on his Group 1 debut looking very solid. And could he be potentially in the fight for a podium position? Rompo, meanwhile, has dropped all the way down to 11th. He will slap on a set of mediums, but he'll have to get past Gaming James if he wants to try and get any more points than 1, which of course he does have by virtue of JMC, also known as Gaming James's current time penalty. We'll go ahead and take a quick look at that time penalty. It's 3 seconds for JMC, 6 for Froggy Boggy. So we'll be sure to keep that in mind as we continue here. But multiple drivers looking at that 2-stop race in what has been a green-to-green race. And now the Alpines as well, starting to make a bit of a breakaway from B-Tom. the Alpines have started to pull away. Beaton with a bit of a mistake there, runs very wide. Just trying to pick up all that time possible. Can he close within DRS range? It doesn't look like he will, and both Alpines in front are going to have DRS here by virtue of the back marker of Alien's AI. So that's going to be a big advantage for them. So they'll go through. The top 6 all stay out. Fighting Albot still continuing to bring that gap down. The gap to the leader only down to 13 seconds now, as it's really been only about a second a lap in advantage of those hards. Got the Williams of Froggy Boggy diving into the pits. He doesn't think his his mediums will go to the end, as he made a bit of a different look there. So that'll be his second stop of this race. I think certainly has been very interesting. Also looking at position changes, Ivan Kaname and Hoodham have had really great races between the two of them, as Alpine now taking full advantage of that back marker to start to pull away here. So there'll be 6 laps to go next time we come across the line. And that's potentially a big difference. I think Frozen trying to play the team game here. I feel like that's the main explanation behind him slowing that much. As he's looking to bring his teammate with him to try and get an Alpine 1-2. We're finding out about doing everything he can to close that gap. This, of course, is the gap to the leader. Ozan, meanwhile, he will retire from this race, so Ozan is now out. We're finding out about trying to work back to the front here. And potentially something else to consider here is, will the hards actually last the remainder of this race? There's Maxi now finding his way past Dan, as I think those hards on Dan's car starting to really wear out here. Rompo as well, making his way past Jordan as he makes his way up into the top 8. Dan actually fighting his way back past Maxi, as I switched away there briefly. Certainly going to be interesting to see how this race continues. About continuing to pull that gap closer and closer to the likes of Dan and Maxi up front. But then it is a big gap from Hoodham up further afield. So is there enough time for Fight Me Nowbot to really close that distance? It's not looking like it right now. It's going to be a big ask. But again, punctures could be a big thing. But as of right now, the Alpines, very dominant. Actually haven't taken a drink of that water yet. Just since we did have those pit stops, it'll be there as a little bit of a post-race thing for me. But we'll come through the final corner to end lap 24. Again, both Alpines in a comfortable spot. You can see B-Tom waiting there in the background, potentially just hoping for something to go wrong for the drivers up in front. I think Hoodham definitely deserves a potential nod for driver of the day, though, as he's sitting in 4th and has managed this race very nicely. He's now, of course, closed the back. Mac T finding his way past Dan. Dan, of course, going to be looking to fight it back. Rompo Strat picking up the fast lap with a 130.0. So Rompo potentially picking up the bonus points. And Mac T also able to stay out front. But, of course, Fight Me Now by continuing to try and hunt them down. Again, that gap to the leader only down to 12.3 seconds, so just has not closed fast enough to really warrant a 3-stop, just compared to how much extra pace Frozen in particular has. But really, both Alpines have had in this second stint. As definitely these two looking like the team to beat here. So it'll be 4 to go now. And again, can anybody do anything about it? It's not looking like it. Out of the final corner. And I think you've got to consider that we are getting rather close to puncture risk here. Keep an eye on this battle for P5 on track. Of course, Fight Me Now bot in a solid position. He'll have DRS opening back up, but this entire set will have it, thanks to that back marker of Elian. Here comes bot looking to the inside of Dan. Going to be a bit braver on the brakes. You can see the hats to the inside. Of course, we'll use that ghosted AI, and that gives Fight Me Now bot 6th place. And now we can go chasing off after MacT. We'll have DRS here. We'll see if he can get that moved on and potentially pull out 3 seconds in the remainder of this race. But yeah, you can see that gap down to only 11 seconds. He had to pick up a lot more time to potentially be looking at a race win on that medium hard 2-stop. But I think would still be a solid result for him. But still the Alpines up at the front. We're going to be keeping an eye on... I'm going to try to keep a bit closer of an eye on Dan here as this continues. Since if this McLaren has any tire issues, that could be a sign that one of the Alpines up ahead could similarly have an issue. As could we get into random puncture range? Could we get in that tire failure range of wear? The further this goes on. First Fight Me Now bot is closed up right to the back of that Ferrari. Looking at that inside, going to hold off until he does get DRS here, which he will have that advantage. And should dispatch MacT rather quickly. DRS open, the Haas moves to the inside and is going to get past very comfortably. But still work to do for Fight Me Now bot if he wants to come home with this P5 or even with 6th or 7th at this phase. He's got to open up a bit more of a gap within these next 3 laps. Of course, you can see the V-carb of Hoodim up ahead. But not too many laps left to go now. 3 laps left. And again, the Alpines looking very comfortable here. I think just cruising as of right now. Really utilizing each other. Trying to put themselves in the best position possible. And Kaname doing everything he can to push to keep with his teammate. Hoodim, meanwhile, has been caught by Fight Me Now bot. Froggy Boggy will find his way past Spenny Pubstub. So we'll make our way into Sector 3 now. Hoodim, of course, now going to have his hands full with Bot, who, you know, I don't think will quite have a shot at chasing down B-Tom. But I think has been definitely a fun driver to watch as this the final stage of this race have hit. Yeah, I think just, you know, dealing with a lot of tire wear. There's Hoodim, going to defend very aggressively, going to pull all the way to the inside. Fight Me Now bot, of course, going to have DRS. There's Hoodim now moving back to the racing line. Fight Me Now bot looking to the inside, under braking. It's going to be the Haas. I think kind of comfortably getting that done. Hoodim going to try to box him in a little bit, but the Haas, of course, going to get a very strong exit. The V-carb going to be a little bit compromised, but will have DRS here. And Hoodim looking to give Bot a fight. Hoodim going to go to the inside, and it's a nice move from the V-carb. Bit of a lockup, though, as he tried to park it on the apex. Fight Me Now bot does go into the back of him. But nothing done wrong there through the defending of Hoodim, as he puts a nice little defensive move together. Again, I think he just tried to keep it tight there. Didn't seem to be anything super untowards. Though I'm sure Stratting is joking about an incident report I had from the Group 2 race last week in his head. But we'll leave that be. But about to come to the final lap now. Gonna stick with this fight as we run back into turn number 1. But both Alpines now, kind of the final lap. And we know now the race isn't over until you pass that checkered flag. So still plenty that could happen as we start the final lap here in the desert. And we'll pull back down. And Bot going to open up that rear wing. Hoodim going to go defensive. Bot going to the inside once again. Going to pull out in front. Get it done under brakes. Big lockup there from Bot. That's going to open the door for Hoodim, though. Bot going to give him a bit of a squeeze to the outside. Did he compromise that exit enough, though? Hood'em going to have DRS open. Bot going to defend the inside once again. Hood'em going to go to the outside. Bot goes back to the racing line, so seemed to be, some very tight racing there. But Fight Me Now Bot with that advantage, but I think Hood'em potentially has done enough there to keep him behind. We'll make our way through Sector 2 now. And Frozen, of course, going to get the power down. See B-Tom there in the background. Just not quite the pace today to keep with these two, as some great teamwork going on here. But one sector left to go now. And Frozen did have to deal with a good bit of pressure from Fight Me Now Bot throughout this race. And, of course, sacrificed a decent chunk of time to allow his teammate, who was in the thick of a huge fight between numerous drivers, into the final two corners now. Just has to get the power on correctly one more time. And it will be redemption this time. It's a 1-2 for Alpine. Frozen this time takes the win here in Bahrain. Brings his teammate Kaname to P2. B-Tom will retain the championship lead, but will be third. Fight Me Now Bot with a solid race. He'll end up P5 as Hood'em in his Group 1 debut. As actually Mac T was close enough to jump up into P5. So it'll be Hood'em, Mac T, Fight Me Now Bot, Rompo Strat, Dan. You can see Gaming James making his way through the final corner. Jordan, though, will finish ahead of him. And that should round out the top 10 for the Aston Martin and the Haas, rounding out the point-scoring positions. And, of course, you got everybody coming through the final couple of corners now to the line. Rasta Cheech will finish 11th. Froggy will finish 12th. Mango going to finish across the line in style. He'll end up in 14th. 15th as Bats will finish 13th. But, of course, your winner this time, for sure, is going to be Frozen in the Alpine, in what's looking to be a very comfortable championship fight in these early stages, but of course plenty of rounds left to go. But this time, Frozen getting it done. And of course we'll be looking to continue that momentum as we do get a bit of a celebration there for Alpine, where it was pain last time in Austin. Definitely be sure to stay tuned, subscribe to LSR if you're interested in joining us for any of our 3 groups of racing, as we do have reserve spots available typically every week, so long as you get checked in early enough. Definitely let us know either in the live chat before we end the stream or in the comment section down below after this stream goes up, and we'd be happy to see you in. But of course, there are your words. Race winner does go to Frozen. Fast lap. That bonus point goes to Rompo Strat. Driver of the day, Froggy Boggy gets it. As he had the most overtakes. Definitely some interesting stuff there. But yeah, Frozen walking away with 25 points. Actually 26 with Pole, Kaname, B-Tom, Hood'em, Macti, Bot, Strat, Dan, Jordan, and David James are top 10. But hopefully you enjoyed that one. Of course, sorry for the delay due to that red flag. And we'll hope to see you next time. I've been Vacant. Have a good one, everybody.